just as we previously promised, we have successfully set a brand new record for the maximum operational range of our drone strikes. And of course, I have this footage and I'm going to show it to you now. For the first time, these kinds of photos were published by Russian social media pages after yet another drone raid. Here you go. And what is known from this story is a new range record. SBU drones struck the Ukhta oil refinery, which is 1,750 kilometers from the Ukrainian border, almost 2,000 kilometers. This, you have to understand, is quite a figure that, let's say, gives hope that it will only continue to increase in the future. These are the kinds of videos they post in their public channels. And I'll also show you some footage of how this drone was actually piloted. Those are available too. I'm giving you the details of what happened. You can see a column of black smoke rising. So long-range drones from the Alpha Special Operations Center of the Security Service of Ukraine struck the Ukhta oil refinery, which is located in the Komi Republic. That's 1,750 kilometers from our border. This is a new range record for Ukrainian drones. After the strikes, a fire and heavy smoke were recorded at the oil refinery. Preliminary reports indicate that the atmospheric vacuum distillation unit and the vis-breaking unit were hit. They are responsible for the primary processing of crude oil and its separation into fractions, as well as the production of commercial fuel oil and gasoline, as we are told. And as I promised, I'm showing you footage of how this drone was piloted, the one that flew almost 2,000 kilometers. And well, it wasn't the only one there, but nevertheless, it set a distance record. Look, another one is still flying. Another one is still flying. Another one is still flying over there. You have to admit, it's beautiful. For me, look, the sun is shining. Oh, there's snow on the ground. The drone is flying. Well, what else can you call it but beautiful? Frost and sun. What a wonderful day. Do you agree? Oops, well, that is it. And now the entire oil refinery is completely gone. That is exactly how it just flew off. It is truly beautiful to watch. Oops, bang. Wonderful. That's what I think. Beautiful, wonderful, good, and lovely shots. Well, now let's move on to the blackout. In Belgorod, in the Belgorod region, they've been hit by a blackout. These are the specific types of visual footage they are currently broadcasting from that location. So, as you can observe, there are entirely dark buildings and streets that are completely devoid of any lighting whatsoever. These are the consequences and the result of Russia waging war against our country, yours and mine. And these are the direct and devastating consequences of the Russian authorities funneling every bit of their national wealth into waging a brutal war and killing innocent Ukrainians, rather than choosing to prioritize investing in their own crumbling domestic infrastructure. So, in Belgorod on February 12th, there was an emergency power outage, which turned into a large-scale blackout in a significant part of the city and region. Electricity was lost on dozens of streets in several neighborhoods. In some buildings, the water was also shut off. In the city center, traffic lights were not working, which caused traffic jams. Due to the power outage, people got stuck in elevators that stopped working. Residents of several streets reported interruptions in heating. Their local Telegram channels are also posting photos like these. And here you can see, yes, that the streets are lit only by car headlights. And here and there, if you look closely, you can spot a candle or some kind of flashlight in the windows of a few buildings. And that's all. This is what Belgorod looks like, which is a consequence of the fact that Russia, I emphasize once again, is waging war against our country and has no intention of stopping. And this too is something we must remember. And if, by the way, you happen to read, sometimes I personally come across some of their public social media pages, as they often say, I honestly think they're starting to suspect something is wrong, because they're already starting to write directly to their local authorities saying not just, well, maybe it is finally time to stop all this fighting if you simply don't have the necessary resources to provide us with basic heat, to actually provide your very own citizens with consistent electricity, reliable heat, clean water, and so on and so forth. So this is actually yielding results and bringing success. And as I promised, I'll show you footage of how beautifully our flamingos fly. And not only do they fly, but they also reach their targets. This is what it looks like. So while you're admiring all this beauty, let me tell you something. So Russian air defense can't cope with the Ukrainian Flamingos. And in fact, the Flamingos are giving Russian soldiers nervous tics. On the night of February 12th, the armed forces of Ukraine delivered a successful strike on the Russian GRAU arsenal near Kotluban. This is the second officially confirmed case of using the FP5 cruise missile, or as we call it, the Flamingo. The General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine reported that the strike on the main missile and artillery directorate's warehouse was accompanied by powerful explosions and subsequent secondary detonations. The official report states powerful explosions were recorded on the territory of the facility, followed by subsequent secondary detonations. The local authorities carried out the evacuation of the village of Kotluban, located near this facility. This is already the second instance where the use of the Flamingo has been officially confirmed, that is, by the General Staff of the Armed Forces of our country. The name of the missile was first mentioned in a report about a series of January strikes on the Kapustin Yar training ground, where, as was claimed, the infrastructure for preparing medium-range missile launches was targeted. Here is the video shared by Steilerman, who, as far as I understand, is also an engineer of this missile. If I'm wrong, please quickly correct me in the comments so I don't end up saying something off. You know what I mean. Oh, someone writes to us here. Got food poisoning in Bukovel. It's true. People did get food poisoning in Bukovel. You're right about that. But it also happened in the Verkhovna Rada. So I'll be telling you more about that as well. So as you can see, these are the shots that Denis Stillerman posted on X. This once again shows how the Flamingo was launched. Very beautiful footage of how our military operates, how the missile works. Finally, a Ukrainian-made missile. And what should be noted is that, indeed, the first such confirmed case was the launches at Kapustin Yar. Why Kapustin Yar? Because it is from there that they have likely launched and plan to launch the Oreshnik at our territory. Firstly, according to reports coming from monitoring channels, the next 2 or 3 days pose a very high risk that Russia will launch the Oreshnik. This is evidenced by the redeployments taking place and the increased activity at Kapustin Yar, which is also being discussed by the Air Force. And yesterday, we even had a situation where there was already an alert, a launch took place, and many public channels reported that it was likely an Oreshnik launch. Later, this was not confirmed, but the probability remains high. What else should you know about the Oreshnik? The fact is that at one of the bases in Belarus, construction has been started, so to speak, and there is military equipment there. There are vehicles, and Radio Liberty took satellite images, and in these satellite images, they recorded all these movements. And they say that perhaps it is precisely on the territory of Belarus that all the necessary conditions are being set up for Oreshnik to be there. You know that Lukashenko has been using this to scare us for a long time. Yesterday, I spoke with aviation experts. They said that if it is from the territory of Belarus, it is impossible to launch this Oreshnik over the territory of Ukraine because it has such a ballistic flight trajectory and, well, it would simply be too far away. But it is possible to launch it over the territory of Europe. And many people agree that the placement of the Oreshnik on the territory of Belarus is specifically intended to scare Europe. And so that Europeans understand that in the event of an escalation, Putin will use Belarus to strike the territory of Europe. I don't know if they are actually ready to do this. Here, by the way, are more shots of the Oreshnik. Here you can see how it moves further along, right? So we saw how it was launched from the ground. There were our military and so on. And here we see how this launch happens already up here, right? Higher up. These are really great shots. And it's very good that our Flamingo has learned to bypass Russian air defense. By the way, what's also interesting, look, and why is it so important that we hit that the first strike was exactly on Kapustin Yar? Kapustin Yar is a facility that is very heavily protected. That is, it's an entire military town. There are a lot of hangars there, and people are actually present on that territory. It's a classified facility, and air defense systems are installed there. Why? Because that's exactly where they keep their Oreshnik, which is very valuable to them, right? And the fact that we managed to get in there is a very good signal to the Russians that their air defense isn't working, that we can bypass it. and we will keep bypassing it. Now, this second strike on the GRAU arsenal near Kotluban is yet another confirmation that the Russian air defense couldn't handle the Ukrainian Flamingo, and we successfully got through and delivered a corresponding strike, which was confirmed by our General Staff of Ukraine. Right now, you can also see how beautifully our Flamingo glows in the dark sky, flying exactly where it needs to go. So this is something that also needs to be taken into account. And in general, I believe this is a very good story and a huge success for our defense industry. And this should be noted every time, because now we don't need to ask permission from the British, the Americans, the French, or the Germans to launch the Flamingo over the territory of the Russian Federation. And in this way, demonstrate that we will continue to defend our country.